So when I was a freshman in high school, I read On the Road, and I also had a meeting with the director that was going to adapt the novel. And it's funny, I look back on my relationship with On the Road and how I held these men in such high esteem because they just lived life to the fullest. And I love On the Road, and I love all of the avenues that it took me down and all the different writers that it has led me to. And I loved making that. I loved working on that movie with that group of people. And as I get older, I think that what I'm really obsessed with is their sort of repossession of form. Their lifestyles were like wild and crazy, and they ran around a lot and were reckless and sort of constantly chasing the it of it all. Sort of just hungry, sort of voracious people. I always was really inspired by that. But as a grown-up person, I think that what I was really attracted to was somebody taking a sentence and just deconstructing it, turning it inside out, making it theirs, making it physical. It's such a rhythmic book, and that whole kind of area in literature is it has an instinct and a quick-footed sort of inclination. And I think that most things that are exceptionally true are impulsive, or at least it makes sense that that's where I started. So I just read Saint Joan of Arc by Vita, and I've never read anything else by her. I just bought everything she's ever written. I'm so intrigued by this person. There's a sort of pragmatism to her writing, but sort of an awareness of the small and tender things in a way that feels very protected. I think that she is somebody that, and I could be wrong, I need to sort of learn more about this person. I'm so curious about her, but she seems protective of her intellect, very proud of it, and it seems like it's being broadcast. It just makes sense considering, I think she was writing in like the 20s, and it wasn't like the easiest time comparatively. It's hard to generalize, but for a woman at that time having a voice and having it be so loud, she just feels like this undeniable force. And when I read the biography, I had been inspired to read Saint Joan of Arc by a book called The Chronology of Water. And Lydia Yuknovich, who wrote that book, it's a memoir. She talks about a lot of the books in her life, this being a really, really seminal and foundational, formative experience, reading this thing. And I just can't really believe that it happened. There is something about believing in something so much, so hard, and sort of just making mountains move and making men change. There are a few lines in it that are so striking. There's one about that she changed the minds of men, or if they couldn't change her mind, then they would destroy her body. It moved me to the core. And you could have written that story in so many different ways, and the way she decided to talk about her was so cool. It just said so much more. It was so much more than historical fiction to me. All we do is make up stories. That's how we live. That's how we survive. That's how we make it through. Everyone's narrative is different. And so for her to impose hers with the strength that she did, I just can't believe the power that she had is just like, it's miraculous. It feels like an absolute miracle. And it also feels like insanity, which sometimes, obviously, it's really hard to tell the difference between those two things. We were just talking about some people being from another place. Tilda, Bowie, Didion, they're like alien people. I feel like when I read anything that Joan has written, that I'm getting a skewed sort of sideways glance at things that I usually just see straight on, and somehow she's always able to help you kind of step to the right or left and see it from an odd angle, and then really just shed new light on things that feel normal to me. It's like she has a almost sinister take on things that feel kind of unanimously accepted, and she's always able to sort of remind you of things like that. I don't know. I think even just her physicality beyond the words, you look at that person and you just imagine what it would be like to live in there. That voice, that particular voice, there is no one like her. I don't feel like any of it is even close to derivative. Everything feels original. All of it feels like thought bubbles from from another planet. I love that person so much. And I love her kind of obsession with flow, process, how things work. I'm kind of an immediate, very present, really kind of to a fault, momentary person. And, you know, our strengths are our weaknesses and our weaknesses can be our strengths. And so that's like cool for me. But I love how she will dissect, you know, the Hoover Dam. How does it work? All that power, keeping all that power in, like just her sort of like, her being taken with how freeways work. Stuff like that. I'm like, I would never think like that. And then making it somehow really personal and making it almost like, you know, she's writing about freeways, but she's writing about us. She's writing about people all the time. So Sapiens and Homo Deus was really helpful for me because I classically kind of have a chip on my shoulder for, I decided to make a bunch of movies and not go to college. And so it was really nice for me to be given something I could hold in my hands and kind of help me zoom out. I'm somebody that becomes so fixated on detail and so kind of lost in them. It was just really, really cool to have somebody like hold my hand and go, I think you need to step back a little bit. And I think the Homo Deus particularly because it is a brief history of tomorrow. Honestly, it just blew my head off. You know, we all get really obsessed with ourselves. We all get so swept up in the idea of individuality. And I love that. That's how we all get to make art and relate to each other and all of that. But it is nice to know that you are a part of a very large whole and that we've wound up here and that it is so chaotic. And certain things that we do, certain things that we believe, all the conditioning, all of the ways in which we've wound up here, those things are not always things that you think about day to day. It was a fun thing to read alongside this movie that I did called Love Me, about sort of deconstructing the idea of individuality, knowing that we all kind of like, we have a me in there, obviously, but at the same time, what is that? Does that even exist? Is that something that we've made up? What books have really made me cry? Me and my girlfriend read Wuthering Heights out loud, and there are a couple lines in that book that made us both lose it. There's just sort of a steadfast commitment to love psychosis. There's such an alienating love story there. Maybe this is totally cliche, but when you really, really think that you have found the person, it's a secret. It's literally an impenetrable, impossible to share or describe to anyone that is not that person, or even not that person, just to yourself. That Heathcliff really, really smacks right on the head very hard. There are just certain things that he says that are like so just ridiculously committed to feeling that I loved. And let's see, I read the first chapter of The Jungle Book recently, and it made me like really ugly cry, like really kind of choke on a few tears. Bluets I read in a period of time where I was crying a lot. So I don't know if it was the book or just the life that was going on alongside the book. I'm actually reading a book right now called Tree, and it's from the perspective of a California live oak. And it describes an ecosystem and kind of relates that to being alive and sentient in any way, shape, or form, whether you are a plant or an animal or a person, a man, a woman. It strips away pretty much everything and connects us all. And the first couple chapters of that, I was kind of weeping throughout, because you also feel this like sort of ecological loss while reading it, which is what we've done with our earth, and just personalizing the perspective of this tree. And it was so stunning. That's something you should definitely pick up. I've never read anything like that. It actually reminds me of Homo Deus and Sapiens. It's a completely different book. It's a novel. But there's something about sort of paying credence to our sameness and the kind of permeation of love that is available if you want it. It's described really well. So, yeah, it's called No Help for That. There is a place in the heart that will never be filled. A space. And even during the best moments and the greatest times, we will know it. We will know it more than ever. There is a place in the heart that will never be filled. And we will wait and wait in that space.